This morning, every supermarket in this country was fully stocked. In a large UK supermarket, there are between 30,000 and 40,000 different products. Each one of those arrived via a supply chain involving thousands of people and crossing multiple national borders. Bread from a wheat farm in Canada. Tomatoes from a greenhouse in Spain. That's where I'm from, by the way, in case you were wondering what my accent was. But also fish that was still in the sea a couple of days ago. All of it fresh, canned, labeled, priced, on the shelf, before most people even had their first tea in the morning. Now, here's what I want you to sit with for the next few minutes. Not a single project manager, director, CEO, committee, algorithm, or politician. None of those. No one coordinated the bread to croissant ratio on the shelves. And yet, it worked. And it worked yesterday, and it's going to work tomorrow. It has worked without fail every single morning for longer than any of us have been alive. So I want to ask a question that sounds simple, but turns out to be one of the strangest questions you can ask anyone. Who decided that food would be in the shops this morning? The honest answer is nobody. And if that doesn't unsettle you slightly, I think it should. Because it means that we are completely reliant every single day on a system that no one is actually running. Literally no one. Now, the standard word for what just happened, what filled those shelves in the morning, is the market. But that word hides almost everything important about it. A market is not a place. I mean, it can be a place, but it's not only a place. It's not a building or a website. A market is a process, a continuous, never-ending negotiation between millions of people who have never met and never will. Thinkers have been wrestling with this puzzle for over 250 years. A Scottish philosopher called Adam Ferguson looked at complex social institutions such as law, language, commerce, and noticed something that should have been obvious, but nobody had said out loud. They were not designed by anyone. They emerged from millions of individual actions, none of which intended to create them. He wrote, "Nations stumble upon establishments which are indeed the result of human action, but not the execution of any human design." Human action, but not human design. Hold that phrase, because we're gonna need it. Let me be specific. This loaf of bread. The wheat was probably grown in the UK or Canada or Kazakhstan. The farmer planted based on last year's prices, just responding to a signal. That wheat was priced at a commodities exchange by thousands of buyers and sellers who will never meet. And it was milled, it was transported overnight, it was baked with yeast from a completely separate supply chain, it was packed with energy from another. Every single person in that chain was a stranger to every other. And here's the detail I want you to hold on to. Even the anti-rust pigment on the bolts of the lorry that carried this flour, made from minerals extracted on another continent by people that never heard of Devon or the Midlands or Cornwall and never will, even they contributed to this loaf. Everyone in that chain was acting in their own interest. The farmer wanted a good harvest price. The lorry driver wanted to get paid and to get home. The same with the shelf stacker. He wanted to finish their shift and get paid. And I can assure you, none of them were thinking about me or my breakfast. And yet, here I am, having toast with butter. That is not despite the self-interest. It is because of it. There's a famous essay from 1958 by a man called Leonard Read. He wrote it from the point of view of a pencil. Cedar wood, graphite, lacquer, carbon mixed with resins, all of them coming from all around the world. And the pencil says, "Not a single person on the face of this earth knows how to make me." That is the puzzle. And in 1945, an Austrian economist called Friedrich Hayek, who would win the Nobel Prize later on, gave it its deepest explanation. He published what is probably one of the most important short essays in the history of economics. It was called "The Use of Knowledge in Society." And his argument was basically that the information required to run an economy doesn't exist anywhere. Literally anywhere. Not in a government department, not in a database, not even in the most brilliant mind alive. It is scattered across millions of people, it's incomplete, it's constantly changing, and mostly impossible to put into words. And this includes a farmer's instinct about when to plant, a shoekeeper's sense that this product sells here but not there, or your decision to buy this and not that for reasons you couldn't fully explain. Hayek called this tacit knowledge. Well, not only Hayek, everyone calls it tacit knowledge. It only exists in the act of doing. The price is actually more than a number, it's a system of communication. It compresses an almost incomprehensible amount of dispersed, unverifiable, constantly changing information into a single number you can act on. Let me give you a concrete example of how this actually works. Let's say a coffee growing region gets hit by floods. The harvest fails, supply drops, it plummets. Here's what happens, the price rises, and it rises immediately. Not when the shortage reaches the shelves months later, but rather right now. That means the coffee already sitting in supermarkets becomes more expensive today. Most people that do not understand how things work get really angry at that. But as a result of that price increase, people buy it only if they truly value it, and they often buy a little less. They actually start rationing, not because anyone told them to, but because it costs more, it's more expensive. That rationing does something important. It makes the existing supply last longer. Instead of shelves running empty and staying empty for months, the stock stretches. At the same time, that higher price is sending a signal to everyone who isn't currently in the coffee business. Hey, there is money to be made right now, the prices are high. If you grow it, roast it, grind it, transport it, distribute it, margins are bigger. You can profit from it. So people move toward coffee and they move their money towards coffee. More gets produced, more reaches the market, and the price starts to come back down. Now, notice what did not happen. No government official announced that the price of coffee should fall because this is abusive towards the customers. No central planner coordinated millions of people across dozens of countries. The price rose, people responded, and the shortage began to resolve itself. Now, I want to be clear about something because I think intellectual honesty matters. All of this does not mean that prices are always right, especially in the regulated environment we live nowadays. And it does not mean that markets solve everything. And some of the arguments I'm making right now have a genuine, serious weak point, which I'm going to get to. But first, I want to show you a story that is so flipping interesting, I think you're gonna love it. It's about a toaster. A few years ago, a design student of the Royal College of Art called Thomas Thwaites asked, could one person build a toaster from scratch? Literally from scratch, starting from raw materials in the ground. He stripped down a cheap supermarket toaster and reduced it to its basic components like steel, copper, mica, plastic, nickel. 5 materials. Surely doable. He traveled to abandoned iron mines in the Forest of Dean, chipped mica from rock in Scotland, extracted copper from flooded mine waters in Wales. He tried to derive plastic from crude oil, and he failed miserably, but ended up using potato starch, which was subsequently eaten by snails. To smelt the iron ore, he had to use a method from a 15th century metallurgical treatise, because modern methods do not work at domestic scale. He said, the smaller the scale you want to work on, the further back in time you have to go. That is actually something to reflect on. 9 months, nearly 2,000 miles of travel around Britain. Total cost? £1,187. He plugged it in once. It worked for about 5 seconds before the uninsulated wire melted the element. He counts it as a partial success. Me too, fair enough. All the credit to him. So, what he bumped into is the accumulated result of centuries of specialization. Millions of people who each learned one small piece of the process, whose knowledge was coordinated not by a plan but rather by voluntary exchange. There's no politician with a whiteboard large enough to have designed what it takes to produce that toaster. Or the camera I'm recording with. It looks like it takes a whole civilization to build a toaster. This is also, by the way, why I find the common law so compelling. Centuries of individual cases, each judge deciding one specific dispute, the law emerging from accumulated precedent rather than from any politician's arbitrary top-down preferences. Same pattern, nobody designed it, it just works. Or language itself, English, Spanish, every language, no one invented it per se. So I want to give you 3 tools for thinking about this. The first one is from a French economist called Bastiat, writing in 1850. He called it the seen and the unseen. The disruption of any system are always visible. The supermarket runs out of a product, it's news. A price spikes, everyone notices. A queue of people forms, it is visible. But what is invisible, what generates no event, no story, no headline, is the constant, successful ordering that runs quietly in the background. The 10,000 mornings the bread arrived on time, the price that adjusted before the shortage became a crisis. Or even the fact that if you need a pen, or a win-inch flat-headed wood screw, for example, you can probably go to a nearby shop and buy it today. That's really almost like a miracle. And this creates a systematic bias in how we see the world. We see every failure, we never notice the 10,000 mornings it worked perfectly. The second tool. You might be thinking, okay, but we have AI now, big data, real-time analytics. Surely a sufficiently powerful system could coordinate supply chains better than the price mechanisms or humans themselves, right? It is a serious objection and I want to take it seriously. It's knowledge people act on without being able to articulate it. A farmer's judgment of the weather shaped by a lifetime of experience and maybe a superstition her grandmother instilled in her. Teenagers' preferences, liking a brand one year and abandoning it in the next. Your own habits, for example, shaped by a film you watched, or a conversation you had, or a feeling you cannot explain. You cannot upload that to a server, because it only exists in the act of doing. Now, I'll be honest with you. I am genuinely uncertain whether sufficiently advanced AI could at least partially solve this. Seems plausible, partially, yes, but to attempt to collect that knowledge by force, to make people's preferences legible, that is what James Scott called it, creates a massive different problem. A surveillance problem, a coercion problem, which is its own video, so subscribe now if you don't want to miss it. And welcome to my brand new channel, by the way. The third tool is from an anthropologist called James Scott. I love him. One of his best books is called Seeing Like a State. Scott noticed that states cannot administer what they cannot see, so they systematically simplify complex local systems to make them legible to central management. Legible comes from leer in Spanish, for example. Legible, being able to read it, being able to understand it from above. Informal land arrangements replaced with formal titles. Mixed crops replaced with monocultures. Vernacular local knowledge replaced with standardized procedures. What Scott documented across dozens of historical cases is that the local complexity they simplified away contained enormous functional order. That is to say, when you try to regulate at a distance from an office without being from there, actually from there, without having anything at stake, you tend to destroy the very thing you were trying to improve. Politicians do this all the time. The simplified, legible version of a complex system is not the same thing as the system itself. Mistaking one for the other is historically where things go really wrong. Now, I want to deal with a common objection because I think it's actually pointing at something true. Someone watching this will be thinking, okay, but not everything should have a price, right? You wouldn't charge your own child for dinner. Well, some people would. You wouldn't invoice your partner for using the sofa, even if you feel like it. And people making those questions are completely right. Prices are not the answer to everything. They're not even supposed to be that. Think about what happens inside a home. The remote, you have to ask for it. The food in the fridge is available for everyone. The sofa spot, for example, we were talking about. You get it if you get there first. There's some sort of homesteading process of the sofa there. No prices, no contracts, and most of the time it works perfectly well. Why? Because inside a household, the scale is small, the relationships are intimate, familiar, the information is immediate, it happens at that precise time, in that precise local point, and the people involved actually care about each other. No one, or almost no one, would think of charging their kids for their meals. Prices are a response to a specific kind of problem, not these ones we're talking about. Prices are meant to coordinate people that are distant from each other. And there are different types of distances. Distant geographically, for example, the wheat farmer from Kazakhstan or Canada and the bakery in Devon have never met. Distant culturally. Sometimes they don't share customs or language or context, but also distant chronologically. The decisions made last year about what to plant are affecting what's on the shelf this morning. In those conditions, even though they are good, moral norms alone cannot do the work. The word moral comes from Latin moralis, which itself comes from mos moris, meaning custom, habit, manner, and some people say it's also related to the etymology of house. So morality at its roots is about customs, the informal rules that govern how people treat each other within a community they actually share. And those customs work inside the community, inside the household, inside the small group where relationships are real and reputation matters. But the moment you're dealing with someone you will never meet, in a country you never visited, whose language you don't speak, voluntary exchange is the best known option, and using money for that exchange to dilute the differences in something that you both share might be the best option. And actually the alternative historically has been pillage, war and robbery. Bastiat, who I mentioned earlier, said it perfectly. If goods do not cross borders, soldiers will. So, where does all of this leave us? The knowledge problem means central planning is, in its strong form, epistemically impossible. By the way, epistemology teaches us what's our ways of accessing knowledge. But that doesn't mean markets solve everything, because some costs are real and the price system literally cannot see them. That tension doesn't resolve cleanly. So maybe two good questions here would be, what kinds of problems require what kinds of coordination? And who gets to decide that? Well, that is what this channel is about. Thank you, see you in the next video.